Hello, this is Edith Neumeyer, and I'm the author of the book The Mystery of Adam. I finished up my review of my book, but I want to continue my videos. And so today I'm going to start a section on dating. And well, it is going to be related to my book, but it's not a chapter in my book. So whatever I'm going to talk about from now on is kind of new things, additions to what I have written in my book. Today, I want to talk about dating that is specifically geared towards women and not necessarily men. I'm going to do one next time just to gear towards men because it's a little bit different. Now, there's some things that need to be addressed for both of them, um, but this one today, and I'm not saying men shouldn't be listening to this. I think men can be listening to this as well. However, I will gear it more towards the women. Things that women should be watching out. I have said that it is okay to get married. You just have to remember that it will take a lot of time out of um, really focusing on the work of the Lord. And for whatever you may want to get married, that is up to you. That's between you and 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 God. Nobody should be interfering in that decision making. It's between you, your partner that you have chosen, um, and God. And you have to listen to the Holy Spirit and decide what He wants you to do. Again, of course, you know that the most important thing is that you need to get married to a believer. That is the most important thing. A believer that is really, really, really focused on God, connected to God, not just somebody that says, oh yeah, I'm a Christian. No, somebody who is really, really, really connected to God, because that determines how He is going to treat you and what kind of relationship you're going to have in your marriage. And of course, you also have to be connected to God, or else this is not going to work. Women, remember, when you're not living under grace, under the kingdom rule, and I'm going to address a little more about this kingdom rule. If you're not living under the kingdom rule, then you are going to be affected, and your husband is going to be affected by a sinful world. Okay? And when you're affected by flesh, then your husband is going to rule over you. You can do what you want. Okay? You're going to have to fight constantly, because that is what God said in Genesis 3:16. He said, your desire shall be for your husband, and he will rule over you. If you do not put Jesus Christ, really Jesus Christ, first in your life, your husband will rule over you, because your desire will be for your husband. Okay? So that is very important. You need to put Jesus where he belongs, not your husband. Put him on that pedestal and expect him to take care of you and provide for you and do everything for you, even though that would be a wonderful thing. But Jesus is your Lord, not your husband. Okay? We do not live anymore under Old Testament rules. We don't. Old Testament rules are under sin. They are under the flesh. We now live in the kingdom. And in the kingdom, there are different rules. We don't no longer live under sin, because when we live under sin, these different rules apply. And the rules are, your husband, you will have desire for your husband. That means you're going to put him on this pedestal that really only belongs to Jesus or God. And Number two, he will rule over you. That is just something that's going to happen. Okay? You will not be able to come together as two adults like you're supposed to and have a mutual relationship, which you're supposed to be having. Remember, we said that God created a helper for the human being. That means in that first human being, there were the male and female components, and therefore God created a helper for both of them. So both need to be that helper. That means both need to be fully adults and stand on 2 feet on their own in order to support this relationship correctly. If you put your husband on a pedestal and let him do everything, and you're not acting like an adult person and take responsibility for your own life and for the relationship, then this relationship, this marriage will not work. It will be destroyed. Satan will get a foothold and it, Satan will destroy that marriage. Okay? A marriage is a very difficult thing because you have two people that are fallen creatures, that are sinful, and they come together, and each person is selfish, and they want their own thing. Okay. Now I know sometimes people are like women, lots of women, they are codependent. And if I hope you know what a codependent is. That means you put that husband in that on that pedestal and you are kind of almost get to the place where you become a doormat and you are not an accountability partner for your spouse. Okay? Because that's what you need to be. If you want to be a true helper, you need to be an accountability partner for your spouse. You need to stand facing each other because that's what this helper means in Genesis. A helper corresponding to him. In other words, you are corresponding to him, you are equal to him, and you guys are standing next to each other or facing each other, and you are a mirror, and you tell your husband, hey, this is not right, or your husband is telling you, hey, this is not right. Okay? And we have to be equal partners in order to do that. So here is the main thing that I believe marriage needs to be built on, because I know we still have these traditional thinking that the husband is the leader or the husband is the head, which means that he has authority over the wife, which is just all nothing but interpretation. No, there's no authority, and I'm going to show you exactly what Jesus taught, because what Jesus taught about the church has to apply to marriage in the kingdom. Okay, if you want to live in the Old Testament, in an Old Testament marriage, go ahead. But then you live under the law. Okay, and under the law, I have to tell you right now, under the law, even there, you can divorce. Okay, matter of fact, if your husband doesn't like your cooking, he can just divorce you. That's what the Old Testament rule looked like. Okay, women were not treated as equals. Now, why? Because they lived under sin. Okay, they lived under sin. The women were property. They lived according to Genesis 3:16. Your desire shall be for your husband, and he will rule over you. Okay, we don't want to live under that. We live under grace. What does John 3:16 say? That's what we are living under. Okay, Jesus saved us all. Okay, for God to love the world that he gave his only begotten Son, that whosoever believeth him shall not perish but have everlasting life. That is, he came for all of us. Okay, for the man and for the woman. Okay, he set all of us free. And because he set all of us free, we're now under grace and not under sin anymore. Okay, so now let's look at Matthew 20:25 through 28. Jesus called them together and said, You know that the rulers of the Gentiles lord it over them, and their high officials exercise authority over them. Not so with you. Instead, whosoever wants to become great among you must be your servant, and whosoever wants to be first must be your slave, just as the Son of Man did not come to be served, but to serve, and to give his life as a ransom for many. Okay? So this is what the kingdom rule is all about, is for us to serve one another. Okay? So a marriage needs to be built on exactly that. We serve each other. Okay? We do not rule over. We don't have authority over each other, but we have mutual respect and mutual submission. And so I know that is not the only one, but that is definitely the one to build on. And of course, there are people called the complementarian that think, you know what, the husband is going to be a servant leader. Servant leader. Now, I have to say to that, a servant leader, I am just not sure about servant leadership. I think we need leaders, but we don't need leaders that have authority over us. We don't need that. If you want to be a leader, then you be that leader that Christ wants you to be, okay? That means you have more information than I have. If you want to be a leader, I am welcoming leaders. If I don't know where I'm going and I need somebody to lead me. You know, I'm a hiker. I like to hike, okay? And I belong to a hiking group. And I understand we always have a leader that leads us. But you know, I only lead a leader when I don't know where I'm going. That's just the way it is. You know, if I know where I'm going, or I even have more idea of what's going on when I'm going on a hike than my hiking leader, I'm not going to follow my hiking leader, because guess what? I know the area better than my hiking leader. And if we're going in an area where it is dangerous, or I know that is leading us away from the route, then I'm going to say to the hiking leader, guess what? I think you're wrong, and I'm not going to follow you because you're going the wrong direction. I don't care if you're the leader today. I know this area better than you. Well, it's the same with any leader. You know, a leader is only a value if he is leading me someplace where I don't know where I'm going. And he's only a value of me if he really knows where he's going. If that leader is leading me in the wrong direction, you know, if your wife, you better say, wait a minute, you're going the wrong direction, man. Okay? Husband, this is not the direction to go in. That's why we need two people, okay, to help us find the right direction. And Jesus said that very clearly. In the body, there's mutual submission. Just remember that. But if you are not finding the person that believes in the same thing, you're heading the wrong direction. Okay? Now, I'm not talking about to those women that are already in a relationship that is heading in the wrong direction. In other words, you have a husband that believes in this traditional headship of the man. That means he can rule over you, basically. If you're in a relationship like that, I know you're going to have problems. But I'm talking about right now dating, okay? But maybe later on I'll talk about how to deal with things like that. Is how we're going to deal with in a marriage where we are kind of stuck. We're all, you know, a woman is waking up and realizing, wait a minute, this traditional model is not working in the kingdom of God, or shouldn't be working in the kingdom of God. But now I am stuck with a husband who doesn't understand that. Okay, that's definitely a problem. So don't get to that point. Oh, I am just so in love with this guy, and he's such a macho guy, and oh, he will be taking care of me and blah, blah, blah. And he's a nice, servant leader. Of course, he's going to be nice and servant leader in the beginning, um, because he wants to, uh, you know, should I say conquer you? Or he wants to, I don't know, win you. Maybe that's a better one. He wants to win you over. Okay. So, but don't be fooled. You make sure that your beliefs are matched. Make sure that the husband or the partner you're picking has the same ideas you have when it comes to marriage. And that is a very important question to think about. Okay, are we going to have a mutual relationship, or how are we going to deal with problems? Is your husband making the final decision? Um, or are we going to make the decisions together? So I I want to really warn you, ladies, okay, to really look. If you think you want to get married and you find somebody who is really worthy, and here it is, worthy, okay, to be your husband, because that's what it is. A man has to be worthy, okay? You have a lot to offer as a woman, quite a lot. And your husband needs to be worthy to be your spouse. And if you don't believe that you are worthy, then very hard. You will be running into somebody who's going to take, advantage of you. And so be careful and check out your partner. Be careful and don't get emotionally tied in with that person in the beginning. In other words, don't get too romantic, because during the romance time, and I know that's the part people love so much about dating, right? It's the romance. And it is a fun time, the romance time. I mean, people, uh, live in cloud nine. This is wonderful. But hey, you need to know that these hormones that are being created during that time blind you to the truth. Okay, the more you get stirred up romantically, and affectionately, and your sexual desire is getting stirred up, and the more hormones are being created, which blind you to see who that other person really is. So I mean, that goes for men and women. Okay, because you know I will be talking more to the men next time, but today more to the women. um, Keep that in mind. If you're not picking the right man, he will rule over you. God prophesied that, and God is not wrong. Okay? Eventually, you will find out that that's the way it is. Now, I heard from an ungodly, non-Christian woman that today a young lady in her maybe 30s or 40s, beginning for maybe late 30s, she was telling me today women rule in marriage. And you know what? That may be somewhat the case, but I don't think that men just going to keel over and make it easy for women. Okay, and that's why we have so much divorce, such a high divorce rate. Okay, because women today, they don't want to um, submit themselves anymore. Okay, but there is a submission in marriage. And I'm not saying it just comes from the woman, but there is a submission. You have to submit to yourself to the other person, okay? Because serving is exactly what that is. Serving is submission. Okay, I serve the other person. does not mean that this person is going to run over you and just totally control you. That is not what that means. Each person has to have healthy boundaries. Okay? This is my area, this is your area. And it does not matter whether you're married or not. You're still going to have healthy boundaries. Okay? So when two unhealthy people get married, there's always going to be problems because people run over somebody else's boundaries. Okay? And that creates problems. Okay? So, yeah, I know today women are standing up to, many women are standing up. And that's something that I will talk about more next time when I talk to more specifically men. But I'm warning these women that are very influenced, by the world, to, hey, you still have to submit. Okay, I am never saying that you should be submitting, but it's a mutual submission. Okay, and submission does not mean that you just keel over and let your husband do whatever he wants to. That's not what submission means. That just means you consider the other person higher than yourself. In other words, you consider what the other person is saying, okay? And you take in account how the other person is feeling, what the other person's needs are. And so, in other words, you are a healthy partner that can stand on your own and have empathy for the other person. Okay? And that's what submission is. Has a lot to do with empathy and understanding the other person and considering the need of the other person. And that is not stopping, just because nowadays we're under grace, especially because we're under grace, that will not stop. So that's very important to remember, is that you're not going to have a worldly relationship. You have a Christian, you have a kingdom rule relationship. You will act like you are part of the kingdom and not part of the world. How much can I get out of this relationship? That's not the thinking. Okay. All right, I will finish up today because our time is up. And so next time I will focus more on the man. And again, you can learn from each other. This is not saying that men shouldn't be listening. Okay? All right. I will finish up and I will see you soon.